Hello everybody, my name's Tom Dorsey and this is Brandon Shuff. This is really the kind of the continuing series of what it takes to become world class. Whenever I have the opportunity to talk to someone who has reached the world class level, I always ask them, do they mind if I do a video on them? And Brandon was nice enough to say, yeah, I'll be happy to do it. I never did that before, but I'll be happy to come and do it for you. I think it helps everyone because no matter whether you're playing pool, golf, you know, if I had Tiger Woods here and said, what did it take for you to become world class, I think everyone would be interested in that. And I'm always interested in that. You know, I've played pool for a long time. In fact, back when I was 15 years old in high school, the Hustler movie came out. And that was the first, that was when I think pool went back on the map from when it was in the Depression back then. In the Depression, pool was probably at its zenith, where Chicago itself had 5,000 registered pool halls in Chicago in the Depression. But when I was in high school and the Hustler movie came out, we all went out and got cue sticks, and we had to play pool. I mean, it was the coolest thing in the world, and that's back in the 60s. And that's when I started playing pool, and it wasn't until my son and wife bought a pool hall, and my son's passion, and he put all the money he had into it, and boy, I said, this is where the direction he's going to go. And I started playing pool again, and the more I play, the better my game gets, but the more difficult pool becomes, and there's more to it when you think about the physics involved, the spin on the ball, the positioning, and that type of thing. It's a complicated game, but it's something that everyone can play. Look at Cindy, who 2 years ago didn't know, my wife Cindy, which end of the cue stick to use. And last Friday night in the tournament, she finished in the money.
Yeah, she did.
It's amazing.
Well. Yeah.
So tell me how you got started in pool.
Well, I got started in pool when I was in middle school. I found myself wandering off from the path from walking home to do homework and stopping at the pool hall on the way home. So next thing you know, I ended up on the pool table just banging balls around, and it just ended up being like a natural gift. Like I could just line up on the shot. Never took any lessons or anything, and I was just a ball pocketer. I could fire the balls in the back of the hole, and you know, I was a straight shooter, I guess you would call it. And next thing you know, I just stuck with it, and it became my #1 interest. And then I kind of strayed off of that path through high school, and then right when I graduated high school, I guess it kind of came back to me in a sense to where, like, I really had that love for it. You know, like the passion came out of nowhere. Because I remember I used to play when I was a kid and I was a straight shooter, and then all of a sudden I got real good. You know what I mean? And it's like, it kind of struck me out of nowhere, the interest for it. So it's kind of similar to your story about how when you started to play as a kid after you saw The Hustler, and then it's like, you know, like you had the passion for it when you were a kid, and then next thing you know, your son gets into it, so it comes back. You know?
But I didn't have the passion to really get good at it. I had the passion to play for nickels and dimes, and we had fun doing it. Okay. And it never occurred to me, what do you do to become really good at this? And I'm not sure that I really wanted to be great at it. But being able to shoot a ball straight in a hole, that's not going to get you to world class.
Of course not. Yeah.
From that point, what does it take to practice to get that? Because that's shooting a ball in a hole is one thing. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's after that ball goes in the hole that is the whole key to this, and that's where the physics comes in, and how the ball spins and comes off the rail, and you have position on the next shot.
Yeah, well, when I came back to pool after I graduated high school, I started to realize, you know, like what pool was really about, and I started to figure out who's who, and you know, like the pro scene and everything, and I realized that there was actually a professional side to billiards. So that kind of really struck my attention, and then I noticed that I really wanted to become, you know, real good, or I wanted to see how good I could get, and then if I could get to that level, then I wanted to see how much better I could get after that. Next thing you know, I just started using certain players in the pool room as a, I guess you would say, a totem pole. So if I couldn't beat Joe this week, I'm going to work on until I can beat Joe, and then once I can beat him, I'm going to move on to Tom, and then once I beat him, I'm going to move on to the next player, and it's like, next thing you know, my game started skyrocketing. I got a lot better, a lot faster, and next thing you know, everybody in the pool room started giving me warnings. You know, be careful. You know, don't. You know, being a professional pool player, you know, it's nothing easy and this and that. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a champion. I'm gonna be a champion. You know, this and that. And you know, I'll let my ego get the best of me, but it got me to a good stage. You know, I mean, I play great pool. I'm very happy with the speed that I play.
Here's the problem, though. You know, unlike golf and some of the other professional sports, I mean, you can do extremely well in golf just by showing up.
Yeah.
And if you wear a Nike hat or you wear something like that, in pool it's totally different, because I know the skill to be a world-class pool player is no different than what it took Tiger Woods to be where he was, or Phil Mickelson to be where he is. It's no joke when you get to that level. You can't miss a shot. I mean, I watch you on television, and I love it where everyone has to wear a vest and really get dressed up to do this. I think it's important for pool to do that. And you like that too, because it gives it a better name.
Yeah.
But in some of those matches, if the opponent misses a shot, that could be the end of the match. You may run the next 5 racks. You may not miss a shot for the next 5, when we say racks, next 5 games to end the series. Mm-hmm. And that's what can happen with any professional. Mm-hmm. So even missing one shot can be deadly.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, billiards or pool in general, or I mean, it really depends on which game or which discipline you play. I kind of found this hard to believe once I found this out a few years ago, but pool, 9-ball or 8-ball, is the only game or sport in the world that is possible for your opponent not to play at all. So if me and you played a race to 5 games, I can break and run out 5 games in a row, and you don't even play.
Exactly.
There's no other game or sport that's like that in the world. When I figured that out, I was like, wow. How am I, you know, I'm going to become world class at this, you know, particular game. You know, I mean, I just found that so interesting. But I mean, it's crazy the difference between, you know, the sports. I mean, the similarities are real important. I mean, you can see how difficult golf is and how difficult pool is, and you know, it's all,
'cause you play golf.
It's all physical and mental combined together. I mean, it's a real. I mean, I do play golf. I mean, I'm not great or anything. I really wish I would have learned golf instead of pool. You know, I'd be a lot more well off. But the way that pool and golf are similar is the mental and the physical aspect. I mean, you have to combine the muscle memory with the ability to stay mentally strong. So, I mean, they're kind of the same. So, the reason why golf makes, you know, more money than pool, or why golf is more respectable than pool, I guess that'd be another way to say it, is the fact that I guess it's just more interesting to watch. Maybe the smaller ball to a longer distance might be the key. Maybe on a pool table, it's just, you know, like a little bigger of a ball to a shorter distance. It's not as fun to watch. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's and then like you were mentioning earlier about, you know, back in the hustler days, pool kind of gained a bad reputation from all the people who lost their jobs going to the pool room and, you know, trying to do what they got to do to get the best of somebody to win their money gambling, and it just kind of started with a bad image.
Well, back in the 30s, like you were mentioning to me, pool was really at its zenith. Like I mentioned, 5,000 registered pool halls in Chicago itself, where people, what you were mentioning to me, during the Depression, people took whatever money they had. They didn't have any jobs. They were all laid off, and they went in and they tried to use their pool skills to earn money for the family to eat. Yeah,
it became very popular. Yeah, I'll give it that. But it also gave it the room for, you know, people to be indoors, and then they're all trying to hide each other's game. I mean, all this stuff came naturally. It came naturally to not let somebody know how good you play. It came naturally not to help somebody get better. It became natural to do what you got to do to best this guy, to beat him out of his money, to fool him, whatever you got to do. I mean, I can't tell you how many you know, trick bets or sucker bets. I mean, you know how you hear of all these little, you know, prop bets where people can do things and you think it's impossible, but you'd have to bet to see it. You know what I mean?
Right,
I mean,
right.
that stuff is notorious for the pool rooms. I mean, real quick, for instance, there was an old pool hustler / prop bet hustler named Titanic Thompson was his name, and this guy, he had more prop bets than anybody you'd ever see. There was this one bet where he bet a guy that he could hit a golf ball a mile, and again they would like post up 5,000 or something like that, and then they'd jump in the car and he'd drive over to the Great Lakes when it was frozen over, and he'd hit that golf ball, and that ball would just roll forever, and he'd hit it a mile. I mean, just stuff like that. I mean, it's like, it's crazy what people will do back in the day to get the best of somebody to make enough money to feed their family. And next thing you know, as time goes by, it kind of, pool was very popular, and it made an impact on, how big it could be. But over the years, it just started to fade out because of the hustling. People kind of frowned upon hustlers. If you're a good person and you have good morals and all that, and you really don't want to be involved with somebody who's a hustler, who's willing to try to get the best of somebody for their money. I know I'm not. I'm not trying to be affiliated with those people.
You have the reputation in the professional pool business as being one of the most upstanding, nice people that you can possibly meet.
Thank you.
And I've seen a lot of people who go off the deep end sometimes when the stress gets high. I won't mention any names, but one of the things about being a professional, I'm reading the book Running the Table, and it's about a fellow named Kid Delicious.
Danny Vasovich. Yeah.
Danny Vasovich, and you've played Danny. You've beat Danny before.
Yeah.
And the book is really primarily all about how he came to pool and how he hustled. The whole book is all about hustling for the most part. And it's just part of the business. In this book, it's mostly about hustling. But when you look at, let's say, a Diamond Billiards that my son and wife own, it's not about that. It's about kids that can come in on the weekend and the parents bring their children in. It's about, there's no smoking in there. If people want to smoke, they smoke out front. It's a place where a lot of people who are my age, in the 60s, 70s, there's a team that on our league called the Bogies. And these guys, it's leisure. It's late 60s up to 80 some years old.
Yeah.
There's a league that's starting and you have to be 55 years old or older to be in that league. And people like yourself, who it's kind of like your home pool hall, you're in there helping people. Like you're going to give Cindy a lesson this afternoon.
Yeah.
So you give of yourself. So it's not like that, like it was before. You see children beginning to learn this, and the more I play pool, the more I think they ought to teach a class on physics on a pool table. Now, what they do in China, what they do in the Far East, is they teach pool in high school. Pool is one of the courses that you can take in high school. What makes the difference between, now this is kind of interesting, why are Filipinos considered the best pool players in the world? What is it that makes it like that?
That's a question that's been being asked for the last 10 years.
I talked,
maybe longer than that.
There's many reasons, but I talked to a Filipino, and he said, you know what, he said, when we grow up in the Philippines, he said, many of us have absolutely nothing. And he said, the one way to possibly win 50 cents or $1 in a day that might get you a meal or your family a meal is to play pool. And we start young, and the kids start young, and they're competing with each other for that 50 cents or $1 that means something to the family.
Yeah.
And you get some of the people that are the best pool players in the world. You've played them. You've played against these guys.
Yeah, I've got a strong...
Efren Reyes, considered the best. You've played Efren Reyes. What makes a difference between him and other people?
Well, comparing Efren to the average pro, Efren is magical. That guy does things on that pool table that... Efren's in a league of his own, let's just put it that way. But as far as the whole Filipino champions list, I really think that their poverty really made an impact on how they play. They're so thankful for everything that they can win, and then once they get to that level, that world championship level, they understand that, hey, this is my ticket out. Bam, I got this talent. I can get, I go to the States, I go here, I travel to England, Dubai. They have, it's a ticket for them. But for the American player, when they grow up as a pool player, they know that pool hurts in America. You don't really make much. You're lucky if you're top 10 is probably, the ones that make a decent living. You see what I mean? And you'd be lucky to make over 100,000. You'd be really lucky to make 100,000 on the pro circuit. But the Americans look at it, it's not a ticket for an American to grow up as a pro. So I think that's the reason why the Filipinos conquer as much as they do. I mean, a couple years ago at the U.S.
And
Open,
they're the nicest people you could possibly meet.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
they're clingy. They're happy going. I mean, they're real. I've spent a lot of time with the Filipinos, and I've studied them a lot. Because I'm curious, just like you are, and I think really that's what it is. They look at it as a ticket, man. They got a ticket out. They got a ticket to to be a champion and to make a living and do what they got to do, and. The Americans, it's not a ticket for the Americans. They're just like, oh, it's more like a struggle.
Well, when you go to a tournament, go to a professional tournament, and there may be, let's say, 120 players in the tournament, and you have to pay to make that, and they only pay the top 18, and maybe the top 12 make enough money to cover their expenses. I mean, that's kind of tough.
That's the most brutal part about pool. I mean, you could have a bracket of 128 players or 64 players, and over half the field, maybe close to 75 or 80%, aren't going to cash anything. So that means you got pros that are traveling to tournaments and spending money for expenses. I mean, hotel. I mean, sometimes you got to rent a car, entry fee, food. I mean, it stacks up. I mean, and then to maybe not even have a chance to get even. I mean, if you got a pro that's traveling the circuit to go to all these tournaments, they're showing a lot of dedication. You know what I mean? And I wanted to say something about the Filipinos a second ago. A couple years ago, or actually every year at the U.S. Open in Virginia Beach, the Filipinos come to the States, and of course, when the tournament's not going on, everybody slides over to the pool room and everybody hangs out, for gambling purposes or whatever. And the Filipinos offer anybody, almost everybody, a handicap. They're just like, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be, John Schmidt or an American champion, and they're going to offer you a handicap, or myself. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even play them with the 8 playing 10 ball, which is like a 2-ball spot. You know what I mean? They play next to perfect. It's like they love to play so much because it's their ticket. You know what I mean? They enjoy it so much more than what I enjoy playing pool every time I'm at the table, but their energy of enjoying it is just at a different level than mine, and I'm trying to get mine there, but it takes a lot of work.
I see that in our business too, as far as stock traders and investors and whatnot. Some people will rise to a particular level, but they don't want to go any further, and then you see some people who are truly world class, and they've just chosen to really give that extra effort to be the best.
So you think background really plays a factor?
Well, I don't know that background I think in pool it definitely plays a factor. I think in the investment business, there are so many things that you can do. Like when we leave here, I'm going to show you a screen that I have with green and red just flickering back and forth. And to me, all of a sudden, it hit me as like, here's 300 pool games going on at one time. Green and red, green winning, red winning, back and forth. Yeah. And to us, it's like a maze of things that you can do. It's a little bit different, but to become world class at the investment process, a lot of it's the same. I get people who will log on to particular websites, and they'll it's a dummy account where you don't have any risk, and you can trade. And they'll come to me and say, "Man, you should see what I've done, man. On this dummy account, how well I've really done in investing. I've got a way of doing it." And it just the second that you put real money up, the game changes.
Oh, it's a whole other world once the pressure hits.
Once the pressure hits, then the ball, when you feel like throwing up in your trash can, that's when you're not sure you're going to press that button, or you do the wrong thing every time.
Yeah, that's very similar to pool. I mean, you could have players that practice. I mean, for instance, I'm sure some good players, from around that practice a lot, and they like to practice, and they really practice, but they don't compete as much. Those are the ones that are going to have less results.
Right.
What's the point in practicing so much if you're not going to put it into play?
Exactly.
Do you see what I mean?
Exactly.
You gotta like for instance, we were talking a little ago before the interview. You could practice the same kind of shot like 100 times with no pressure, and then you can make it 90 out of 100 times, and then the very next weekend you go play in a tournament and that same shot comes up. Are you literally gonna think about how you were practicing that shot 5 days ago? Now you're distracting yourself from the layout. You know, you're thinking about just this one shot, which is okay sometimes, but shooting the shot under pressure is a whole new shot than shooting it 100 times for fun. So
in other words, like the old saying is, the difference between a good player and a professional player is the good player will practice a shot so many times until he can make it, and the professional will practice it so many times until he never misses it.
Exactly. That can help, but it can be the backfire point too. I mean, it can backfire on you in a second. You might make that shot 100 times in a row and be like, "Oh, this is my favorite shot," and then go play in a tournament. Now it comes up under pressure, and you get up and you miss it. Now what are you going to think to yourself? You know, I mean, that can happen. I mean, all it takes is a thousandth of a second to miss that shot. That's all it takes. I mean, you could tell yourself right at the last whatever that, you know, like, oh, something don't feel right, bam, and you can miss it. That means the pressure hits you at the wrong time. So it all matters how you perform under pressure. You know?
Now, once you enter into a game, let's say 8-ball or 9-ball, how many shots are you thinking ahead? Because like a chess player, when I look at a chess board, I see players. I know how the rook moves. I know how the bishop moves. I know how all the players move.
Yeah.
I got no strategy though. So what I see is a bunch of men on the table. When a professional looks at the chessboard, he sees a pattern.
Yeah.
It's like your color blindness test. If you go to a doctor to see if you're colorblind, and you look at all these little colored spots and whatnot. If you're colorblind, you don't see anything but colored spots, or just spots.
Of course.
If you're not colorblind, like the number 7 jumps out at you, that's the difference between a professional looking at a chess board like a Bobby Fischer did. I just watched his life story on TV. And a professional, when you look at the table, you're going to see things that are different than what I see.
Yeah, of course.
What is it you see?
I look at, when I see the table, I see a layout. Like, I see one pattern. I believe in right and wrong for every shot. For every situation, you could do this, you could play this pattern and get on a ball, or you can play this pattern. But if you play this pattern, then you're going to end up being tough on your next shot, even though you're going to have a shot. But it all matters in repetition. You have to see how every shot can connect to each other. So it's kind of like...
So it would be like looking. You just gave me a vision.
All
like
right.
You would take a ruler and say, okay, I'm going to connect this shot to this one. Then I'm going to connect.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave the ball here and connect that. You just see a bunch of lines that are going back and forth.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. I mean, the more you play and the more layouts that you see, you can just start to glance at the table and just see the layout, and it's like the blink of an eye. I can look at the table, bam, and just already see it. Like, I can already see my ending shot. You know, and it's like, and then you just have to do it in fluid motion. You just have to go with it. I mean, I think that's a big difference between good players and world-class players. Is the good players can sit there for a minute and study the table and see a way to run out, but then they start to think about, well, what if this goes wrong? Am I still going to be able to get out from there if it becomes a problem? They're not sure. Even though they're good players, they can run a rack and they can run out and stuff like that, but they don't see the ultimate potential problems. Now, world-class players, they can analyze the layout, see the right way to run out. But if something happens to go wrong on my 4th or 5th shot, I can resort to this pattern. So it's like you see your alternate routes.
Okay, so it's like when we put a trade on. I always say, whenever you put a trade on in investing, you have to ask yourself, what will I do if things go right? What will I do if things go wrong? If things go wrong, I need to plan on how I'm going to handle that. So it's the same thing in investing. The world-class investor understands when things go right, what am I going to do? And it's not just sit back and let it happen. There are things that I need to do while this is going right, and there are things I need to do when this is going wrong.
Exactly. Each layout has a different take that you have to come forth with it. You know, I mean, if you see something that might go wrong, you know how to prepare for it already naturally. You know what I mean? I mean, that's very similar in pool, and that's really the difference between a world-class player and a good player. I mean, that's why I'm never stop learning at playing pool. That's another good thing about pool, is you can never stop learning. Efren Reyes is the best player in the world. Everybody, I mean, non-arguably the best player in the world. He's still learning. and everybody stays learning. That's why pool is so great and it's so challenging, because it's imperfectible. You can't play perfect, and it's just the ultimate challenge, and that's what I think. That's what keeps us all going.
And it's so interesting. It's something that everyone can do. Kids can do. Instead of being on the Xbox all day, come over to the pool hall and learn how to play some pool. And I think develop your skills, learn something about physics.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all about physics and angles and spin and things like that.
It's amazing to think about how a round object can make another round object react.
Exactly.
It's awesome. It is awesome. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's so interesting. It's something that I keep learning, and I kind of get obsessed with it. I go to bed thinking about it at night now.
All right.
And when you talk about the stress part of it, that's where the game changes. Like when I'm playing a game, my game has gotten to be okay, but then I'm playing someone in league.
All right.
That I might consider inferior to me, and I never would say anyone's inferior to me, but I would say,
of course, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Skill level is below me. I'm going to have a difficult time. I'm going to have a straight-in shot with 1 foot to go in the hole, and I'm going to miss it. And that's where the stress part comes in. It's a shot that you could blindfold me all day, and I'm going to make it 19 out of 20 times blindfolded. Put me in a league with someone that I'm scared to lose to.
Yeah.
And that shot becomes the most difficult shot I've had in my life. Just the other night, I played a lovely young lady who is equal skill to mine, I would say. And we had 4 or 5 shots on the 8-ball, and they were simple shots. And both of us, it was getting in our heads. Until finally she left me a shot I could do blindfolded.
Yeah, y'all started thinking about about how you're getting along with your opponent so well. It's kind of like the killer instinct isn't there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you want to make the shot for you, but it's just not enough to make yourself make the shot.
Yeah. Well, she's a wonderful, wonderful player and a wonderful person, and we had a good time. We had a good time that night.
That's pretty cool. League play is real good. I mean,
what's one of the worst times you had in hustling?
Losing the rent money.
I mean, have you had any close calls, like in a place where somebody wanted to?
Like altercation wise?
Yeah.
No.
Because you're one of the nicest people around in the pool that you've never run that. Because
I avoid all confrontations. I honestly, in the last couple years, as I became a professional, I've really started to think about my image, and the image is the most important thing. It's just better to be well respected and have people know that that you're respected on the pool table. I mean, you can gamble and stuff like that and have altercations and find yourself in a bad situation where you got to stick up for yourself, and then outsiders could look at it like you're wrong, or he's right, or he's right, or he's wrong and you're right. I mean, it could go different ways, but I really try to focus on my image now. I kind of stopped the gambling. I mean, it's the more you gamble, the more confrontations you're going to have in the pool world, at least. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are still trying to get the best of you, like right. Back in the hustler days.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think now what you see is a lot with live streaming on the internet. It's really cool because you could have a match. Let's say you had a match for $20,000 against another professional, and they might come to Diamond Billiards, and you would play right there and have it streamed live.
Yeah,
so that's not so much. That's not what you're talking about. Is gambling.
I mean, like going in the pool rooms and sitting around all day and trying to see who's winning what and who's got this and who's the best guy to go after, and then you got to try to convince them to play a certain way or a certain handicap to where it favors you, and everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to be the favorite. So it's like there's so much convincing and maneuvering on people in the pool room when it comes to the gambling scene that it's almost not even worth it. It's just a bunch of heartache trying to get the best of somebody in the pool room. So I just try to avoid all that and focus on the tournaments.
Yeah, you just don't need that.
And the better you become, the better a pool player gets, the more popular they become to talk about in the scene, just in the scene in general. So since I started to become a well-recognized pool player, I started to really know that my image really means a lot. So stop the gambling, Brandon. I'll play big sets and I'll do things like that, like $5,000, $10,000 sets, and when they're streamed. But I'm not going to go I mean, I'm not going to say I don't do it. I still do it sometimes when I need to pay the bills, but I'm not going to go sit in the pool room every day or chase the people who got the money. You know, I'm not going to do any of that. I'd rather really focus on the tournament trail, because that's what helps the image, is the tournament trail.
Well, there's always somebody in any pool hall is going to want to test you anyway.
Of course.
They're going to want to say, let's play for some money.
Oh.
In the hopes that they could beat you and say, I beat Brandon.
Yeah, when egos collide.
Right. When egos collide. Exactly.
That'd be a good name of a book.
Well, Brandon, we're gonna run a little bit long here. I want to thank you very much. In fact, one of the cool things about the pool hall is everybody gets a nickname.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and it's funny. You know, you walk in, hey, Smooth, and his nickname Smooth Criminal or Kid Smooth, or, you know, or whatever. Yeah. Yours is Brandon Shuff.
Shuff.
Everybody's got a nickname in the pool.
Yeah, sure enough.
Sure enough. Exactly.
Some days I like it tough. Some days it's show enough. I mean, sometimes it changes, you know. But I appreciate you having me, Tommy.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, you know, and I love to talk about it. So thanks a lot. Appreciate you being there, and I'm going to be your stick man in Abu Dhabi. We're going together.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You're welcome.